Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. Justin Baker, my co-host, joining me as usual on this lovely Thursday evening. I'm just gonna like shame myself here because I completely lost track of time. So Justin's been sitting around for like 45 minutes waiting for my ass to get on here. So
45 minutes.
It was. We were supposed to start at 5, and well, okay, maybe it was like 5:30 or 5:35.
Maybe 30 minutes at the most.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. But still, what a trooper to just sit there and wait, not do anything. He just sat there waiting for me. No, that's not true. You got paid money at least from someone.
Yeah,
else.
That's very true. I get paid.
Not from me. Not for. Neither do I. I lost myself in building a closet. So. That's my bad. Next time I'll set a timer. I feel like this time of day is usually like pretty standard for me to be like, okay, yep, I'm gonna hop on the show, and I don't usually do something like building a closet at 5 o'clock, but you know, maternity leave for my wife and all this just kind of has the days and the times all thrown off. But anyways, we're here to talk about hockey, and hockey we will talk. We just finished our top 10 girlfriend teams, which I suspect some of these teams will, in our list today, will be on there. But today we really want to focus on who we think can actually win the Stanley Cup. Because generally, would you say, Justin, there's like at the start of a year, probably you're looking somewhere between like 4 to 8 teams that legitimately could win the cup?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good number.
And then by this time of year, I think you're kind of you've maybe narrowed it down a little bit, but I think 5 is a good number for me. Like, if you can choose 5 teams, and you say one of these teams will win the cup, if you're wrong, you probably you had a bad year. You had a bad prediction year. I'm trying to think what would be what year did I not pick a team? At least starting at the playoffs. Like right now, we're pretty close. You know who's for the most part who's going to make the playoffs. And if a team doesn't make the playoffs, am I gonna? If the Florida Panthers get into the playoffs, I'm not picking them to win the Stanley Cup anyways. So at least I'm not. But so I'm not really worried about those fringe teams. It's generally going to be some of these teams dominating, but. Yeah, how did you? What kind of made a team make this list or miss it for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I just kind of looked at each group, right? And when I say group, I mean the forward groups, the defense groups, and the goaltending groups that each of these teams have. I looked at where they are in the standings and specifically what divisions they're in, and they're what I look at as a path to the finals, right? What realistically. Because you look at, you might look at a Pacific Division team and think, okay, might be an easy path there, or maybe you look, towards the Atlantic and you say, shit, any team's got to probably go through Boston at some point, or the former, back-to-back champs, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that might not be an easy route for
either
one of those.
I mean, if you're the Leafs, it's both.
Right. Yeah. So how easy is your path to the finals now? That played a huge factor in me picking some of these teams. Okay,
yeah, that's a good way to pick that, because I mean, certainly there are teams where you go, well, they're definitely good enough to win, but if they have to play 2 amazing teams right off the bat, and you've got a team in the, let's just say maybe the Pacific that isn't as dynamic, or I feel like at the same time, man, there are no easy outs here. I'm looking up and down in the playoffs and like, who do I want to play in the playoffs? Is there any, I think maybe even 5-10 years ago, there used to be like, well, there's, if you have to play a team, it would be this one team. Like, do you want to play Pittsburgh in the first round of the playoffs? I don't. I know they haven't won the first round in 5 years,
right?
But do I want to play Pittsburgh in the first round if I'm Boston or if I'm Carolina? I mean, I'm not looking forward to that series. Or let's say Pittsburgh misses and it's the Florida Panthers, who we thought we like basically read them their rights, and the Florida Panthers are right on the cusp of it. And if the Florida Panthers make the playoffs, I don't want to play them in the playoffs because they've been playing that, they're in that mode of we got to win, as we have to win a lot to get into the playoffs right now. So they're hot. They're coming in on a hot, like a high note, and kind of all that losing, the 28 games that or 35 games that they've lost, if you count their overtime losses. They're practically a 500 team, but they are not 500 in their last 20 games. They're far above it. So they are coming in hot. It's not a team I want to play. Do I want to play against Brady Tkachuk in the first round? Or sorry, Matthew Tkachuk?
Yeah, no thanks.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Barkov? Do I want to try and play against these guys in the first round? No. They certainly will have a chip on their shoulder, and it'll be a tough out. So in my mind, there are really no easy outs here. At least in the East, there's definitely no easy outs. Okay, well, with that said, anything to add before we jump into our teams?
I just want to let the listeners know, and maybe this is something better left for the end of the show, but I think it's important to get it out of the way first before we start talking. And that is, I am currently beating you in our fantasy playoffs, our matchup this week. Only up by a few points, but
a few.
Right now projected to win.
I think you're up by a good chunk.
I mean, right now, let's see what the score is. We've got myself at 225, and you're at 145. So, a little chunk, but only projected to win by 40-ish points right now. So we'll see. All it takes is one good night out of your group.
Dude, I mean, you had
night out of mine.
Your first night, I think you had like over 100 points in just a Monday night or something like that. I was like, holy crap! You just had the best Monday night of your whole year.
Right.
Of course.
So we'll see.
Last week I had such a good week and I had a bye.
Right.
And now, of course, we'll see.
I'm not counting you out because I've seen a Sunday where you've come in and put up like 150 points, and gosh, that would be the suck balls of all suck balls if you come in and just destroy me like the last night of the match.
I think one weekend I was down by over 100 points, and I scored like 350 points in a weekend and won by like 50 points.
Right.
So yeah, it's possible. It certainly hurts having Kaprizov on the IR. He was just mad money. I mean, he's like the 10th ranked player in fantasy. So to lose out on that hurts. But I know everybody has injuries. It is what it is. But good luck the rest of the way. Good luck the rest of the way. Sir. All right. Let's get to your first team. I don't know. Are these ranked like who is number 5 the 5th likeliest team to win the cup, or you just have 5 teams?
I mean, I just put 5 teams, but I mean, I know in my head, honestly, where I can rank them if you want me to.
Oh, no, we don't have to rank them. We won't rank them for now. Yeah, I didn't rank mine either, so that's fine. That's what I was kind of hoping for. I know once everybody's in the playoffs and stuff, we'll talk about our actual picks and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll do some power rankings.
But these are just, hey, here's 5 teams that we think legitimately could win the cup, and that's what we're going after here. So why don't you start with your first team?
Yeah, first team, I'm going to go with the Dallas Stars out of the Central Division. And I know a lot of people might be looking at me thinking this is a crazy pick, right? You're going to probably have to go through Colorado and Minnesota. I mean, gosh, has been no slump. They're 7-1-2 without, Kaprizov here in their last 10. But, for me, my money, I have to go Dallas Stars because, I mean, my reasoning behind this, I look at the forward group and I think there is tremendous depth there. I think right now they're getting the best out of Jamie Benn, the best out of Tyler Seguin.
Jamie Benn's been phenomenal. I mean, this is the Jamie Benn reclamation year. I mean, if he doesn't win what is it? What's the
comeback player of the year, the Bill Masterson?
Masterson. He should win that.
Yeah.
He really should win that.
Yeah, and if look, they've got rookies like Wyatt Johnson, Ty Dellandrea playing phenomenal.
Wyatt Johnson leads all rookies in goals.
Right, yeah, and if Mason Marchment can find a little bit of what he was in Florida, I mean, this team is going to have a top 9 that, rivals teams like Boston and, maybe even the Maple Leafs too. But, I mean, these are going to be this is going to be a phenomenal team to play against in the playoffs. And I think especially with the new coaching in here now, they've opened up that can of offense a little bit more. And I think they're just going to be dangerous, come playoff time, because not only do they have the offense, but they've got the defense and the goaltending to do it. And for my money, Jake Ottinger might be, honestly, one of the toughest goaltenders to play against in the playoffs we've seen in the last few years.
He was great last year. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, and you also look at their path. They may have to play Colorado in the second round. That's just everyone's going to have to play a good team in the second round. That's just how it goes.
Right. And for my money, Colorado's not as scary as they were last year.
No, absolutely not. And that starts with Nazem Kadri not being there and flutters down the rest of the lineup. But the first round matchup, looking and going, well, likely Dallas ends up in the, they're one of the one. They're they're a 1 seed. Maybe they play Colorado in the first round. I'm looking at this little Minnesota stretch. I think they'll probably slow down. It's so tight on the top here. But as it stands right now, Dallas plays Seattle in the first round, and those are two teams that can put up a lot of goals. They're the two highest scoring teams in the West. Outside, well, okay, no, I lied. Edmonton is the highest scoring team in the West, but they are two of some of the highest, number 2 and number 4. So they'll score a lot of goals. But I think that ultimately Dallas has the depth to be able to play against Seattle. I just don't see Seattle beating anyone in the first round based on who they may match up with. So I look at that first round matchup, if Dallas gets that 1 seed, as okay, well, there's not an auto going to the next round, but there's a likely win in the first round. Whereas if you're that 2 or 3 seed in the Central and you got to go toe to toe with Minnesota or Colorado, then you're looking at a much tougher road to the finals, because first round you got to beat them, and in the second round, you're going to get one of those teams again, I guess. So that 1 seed is probably crucial in the Central Division to avoid that heavyweight matchup early on.
Yeah. And for me, I think Dallas just, again, plays such a well-rounded game. You look at their numbers, goals for per 60, they're 8th in the league as far as that's concerned, and goals against per 60, they're 7th best in the league. So they play it great on both sides of the puck. Yeah,
very balanced. And come playoff time, you just can't hate having Jamie Benn on your team come playoff time.
Nope.
Okay, well, the Dallas Stars were one of my teams as well, so we'll just we'll keep it at that. I think the Stars have a legitimate chance to win the Stanley Cup, and it doesn't hurt that they've been there recently, right? They went there in the bubble. So they've got some veteran guys who they know how to get there, and I think that their rookies are just continuing to peak. Not their rookies, but their younger guys. They seem like they're continuing to peak right at the perfect time for Dallas. So their time may be now. I could see them also, advancing and faltering before the finals there, but they definitely are a team. I think you're crazy if you don't have them on out of 16 teams that could win the Cup. I think they're one of the 5 that are definitely on my list and yours.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll give you my next team. I'll scoot over to the Eastern Conference. How do you not pick the Boston Bruins to be one of those teams that could go to the Stanley Cup Finals?
They are on my list as well.
They've got to be. They are. We've got 12 games left. If they somehow win 9 of those 12, which that would be a feat in and of itself, especially coming down the stretch, that'd be a lot of games to win. They would set the record, of course, for most wins at 63, 62, the current record held by the 95-96 Red Wings and the 2018-19 Lightning. Is that right?
That should be right.
Yeah. So, they're either way. 8 out of their next 12. That's pretty likely. I think it's just that extra win. Will they get that 9th one? I don't think that they really care, but nobody scores goals against them. And they're a plus 114, which is unbelievable for a goal differential. They're just ripping through right now. But they have players that have won the Stanley Cup in Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci. They've got so much depth throughout their lineup, and their defense, their top four might be the best in the entire NHL. And then there's Linus Ullmark, who probably should win the Vezina.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that, for sure.
So, I mean, I guess the only thing that you could say is, hey, the Bruins are going to have maybe the hardest path. The Atlantic is probably the hardest path to the finals. I guess subjectively, it's the hardest path. So that would be the first round. The Bruins. I guess the fortunate thing is because the Bruins are the 1 seed. So because of that, they're going to get to play either Florida or New York Islanders or Pittsburgh. One of those 3 teams. If you're Boston, who do you want to pull in the first round? Any of those teams?
Personally, out of the 3, I want to stay away from Pittsburgh just because you can never count out Crosby and Malkin. And, Tristan Jarry has always been clutch in the playoffs. And so for me, I'd probably want to go up against Florida. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think you'd want to avoid Matthew Tkachuk at all costs, but that goaltending is so suspect right now. And I think depth-wise, their team just isn't quite what it was last year. And so I'd be a little worried if you're Florida having to go up against,
Well, I don't think Florida cares. But I think Florida just wants to get in.
Right.
I do. I mean, you look at Boston has lost 6 games at home out of 34. And 3 of those are in overtime. So only 3 regulation losses.
And you got to win 3 in Boston to win that series, really.
The Florida Panthers have won 15 out of 36 games on the road. So that is a monster mismatch where one team struggles on the road and the other team is dominant at home. So that's going to be a big problem in a 4 games at home for Boston against Florida. And you're probably looking at 3 of those wins going to Boston right there. So then you've got to find your other 2 wins at home or 3 wins at home against the Bruins. That's just not. It's gonna be tough. So I would look at their path as far as being that 1 seed probably is the best case scenario in the Atlantic, because then you get the Leafs and the Lightning beating up each other, and whoever you face in the next round, theoretically you get a team that is beaten up.
Yep.
That Atlantic is going to be so tough, that first round matchup. But there are other first round matchups that are very difficult, and I think there's some other teams that could also get to the final. Like, I don't think just because you're a 1 seed doesn't mean you're going to the finals by any means. So who do you have next on your list?
Yeah, why not stay in the East? Because, I mean, I'll be honest, 3 out of my 5 are Eastern Conference teams. So for me, I'll go with the New York Rangers. We'll switch divisions here. To me, they're a team watching last year, they were a little suspect 5-on-5, but I think the addition of Patty Kane, bringing in, Tarasenko, I think there's so much raw talent in this forward group right now. I would be just trembling if you had to play this group in the first round. Yeah, I think if they have to play New Jersey, which it's almost looking that way in the first round, I think New Jersey's probably got to be a little worried because this is going to be a hard forward group to go up and play against night in and night out. And I know New Jersey plays fast; they score a lot of goals too, but. For me, again, I think the addition of these veteran guys who have won cups before is going to be so huge. And then not to mention, in my opinion, I think the best goaltender in the world is Shesterkin. And so, again, when you got to play him in the playoffs last year, he was lights out, played great. And so I think you're going to see another phenomenal run out of him. And, with this defense was a little suspect last year, but I think they're a year older. I think they've done enough to, warrant me to say, hey, you know what? I think this is a team that could win the cup. And, doesn't hurt either that they added, Nico Mikola. I think he was a great addition to that bottom pairing. I think will definitely help them out, especially when you get, deeper and deeper into the playoffs, when you need that 6th or 7th defenseman to really step up and play a few more minutes. Yeah.
And, the other side of the Rangers are going to have to play the Devils. That's very likely. I think pretty high chance that's going to happen. Rangers are, even though they would be the 3 seed, so they would the Red Devils would have home ice advantage. The Rangers are 28-6 on the road. They've been really good on the road, and the Devils have actually been they've struggled at home. 19-13-4. They're one of the few. I think out of all the teams that are in the top 3 in their division, I think that they have the worst home record out of all those teams. So the New Jersey Devils have been great on the road, but really struggled at home. And funny enough, that's kind of the same thing. The Rangers have been okay at home, and the Devils have been amazing on the road. So yeah, I guess that kind of lines up. But the fact that New Jersey would play 4 home games, maybe that's almost a disadvantage at this point for the Devils in the playoffs. Plus, is New Jersey really a home game with the Rangers? Like, it's probably going to be a pretty 50-50 kind of crowd in that series. But that will be a throwback series. It's like none other. I'm looking forward to that series. Yeah,
that's got 90s written all over it, baby.
Yes. Where's Marc Messier? Okay, well, I know you've got... Well, okay, so you had Boston and New York, so you've got one more team in the East and one more team in the West. I want to go... I'm assuming you have some team maybe in the Pacific?
I do have one. You're right about that.
Okay, so you have ruled out the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup.
I have. To me, I can't pick them because I don't have a lot of faith. I mean, Gorgiev's been good this year, but I don't have a lot of faith in him yet in the playoffs because he hasn't shown it to me, right? And that missing piece of not having Kadri there, and with Landeskog, I know he's been skating lately, but I'm not, I don't know where his health is yet. We haven't seen him on the ice, so I think those pieces, those missing factors, just their missing depth at the forward group position is just, it's a little bit too much to try to overcome, in my opinion, versus some of these other teams.
Man, it's so weird. In the beginning of the year, I think like everybody had them at least in like if we were going to do this in October in October of 2022, Colorado would have been on this list. Even without Kadri, they would have been on this list. We wouldn't have been able to exclude them.
Yeah, I think that's an automatic, right?
And here we go, sitting here in March, and neither one of us have them on our top 5 list to win the Cup. So, yeah, I think also it might be a little bit of like, unless I love the team, I kind of want to see a new team in there. Right. I don't know, I just want to see some other faces. Like, all right, cool, McKinnon got his cup. Like, he can get another one later, but I'm kind of over the Avalanche for now. But, I'm sure they have other things to say about that. So who do you have in the Pacific then?
Yeah, I chose the Edmonton Oilers.
Okay.
I just, I've been watching. It's funny, when we did our midseason awards, and I picked the Hart Trophy finalist for me was Jason Robertson. There was an argument to be made for him, but you know what? Connor McDavid was just light years ahead of everybody. At that time, the gap wasn't as big, and now I just look at it now, and Connor McDavid is light years ahead of everybody in every category. And he makes everybody look stupid night in and night out. He's the first player in NHL history to score his 60th goal on an overtime winner. So, I mean, he does things that others are not doing. And I watched that game last night with him, and he looks stupid, just so good.
He is so good. And then you add the fact that there's also Leon Draisaitl, who also makes people look stupid.
Right. Yeah. The NHLPA just came out with their player awards that were voted on by the players. Right. If you haven't read that list, go ahead. And best passer went to Leon Draisaitl. And last night watching him, right before Connor McDavid scored that overtime winner, he was pressured by somebody, had his cross-checked in the back, turned around on. His back was facing Connor going the other way, and just backhand passed a sauce that was perfectly taped to tape. I don't know how the hell he did that. It was ridiculous. And so again, a healthy Draisaitl, McDavid coming in with, I'm assuming these guys are going to have chips on their shoulders. Because you got to think, for so long, they've just been every year they come in and everybody's like, yeah, they have to win. They have to win. They've got to go deep in the playoffs, right? And they come in last year. They have a great run with a injured Draisaitl, basically, and getting subpar goaltending. And I think, Stuart Skinner, if he can have average goaltending, I think this team has enough firepower, in my opinion, to really go deep. And not to mention, too, they went out and they addressed some deficiencies on defense with Matthias Ekholm, who has looked great so far.
He might be the deadline acquisition of the whole deadline, right?
Right. And you know what? If you can get a little bit out of Yamamoto and a little bit scoring out of some of your depth pieces, if Evander Kane, I think he could need to step it up a little bit. But yeah, if these guys can get a little bit of depth scoring help, man, they're going to be tough to beat. And not to mention we talked about paths to the finals. To me, the Pacific is the easiest one to go through. Just looking at, yes, LA and Vegas are not going to be easy outs, but I would rather face them than having to face Colorado or, and who knows, maybe Edmonton leapfrogs Vegas by the end of the year and gets that number 1 seed and plays Winnipeg or Seattle. And to me, that would be even easier.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to do. Jumping 4 points in 9 games is very difficult.
Sure.
Especially since the 2 teams in front of them. Well, the Oilers have won 5 straight and went 8-2-0 in their last 10. LA is 8-0-2, and Vegas is 8-2-0. So then no one's made up any ground over the last 10 games. So it's going to be tough. They certainly could maybe nab home ice advantage from LA. I don't know that they're too worried about that, but with that rematch, that'll be the only thing maybe that kind of makes me go, well, there's the LA Kings are a much better team than they were last year. They've been fantastic, and if it weren't for their terrible goaltending, they would likely be the top team in this division in terms of points right now.
Yeah, if you got Korpisalo a month or 2 earlier, absolutely they would be at the top of this division. So,
with that said, and the fact that Philip Deneau is like 2 years removed from, even last year, the guy, you just don't want to play against that guy in the playoffs. Although it's not as if Connor McDavid had any trouble last year. It's hard to stop Connor McDavid, even for one of the best defensive centers in the league. But they've added Kevin Fiala, and their defense. Remember last year Drew Doughty was out, so they didn't have him, and they didn't have Gavrikov. So there's certainly some upgrades that LA has done. I don't think that first round matchup is going to be as guarantee-o. Even though LA did play them pretty well last year, I do think Edmonton wins this series, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if LA went and won out in this division and ends up in the conference finals. Like, they're that good. I think they're I'd say they're easily the most underrated team in the playoffs going in, because they really could win. They really could go to the Stanley Cup final. But they could also lose in the first round. That's what's they're in a difficult spot. And it's hard not to pick the Oilers, because they really are. They have the best players. Like, hey, you got the 2 best players. How am I going to... It's hard to pick against that. It's like when Pittsburgh and it was Crosby and Malkin were at their height. It was hard to pick against the Penguins. Even though you knew they wouldn't win every year, you went, they're going to win some year. Like, it's going to happen. Right. So, I went back and forth on these teams in the Pacific. I thought, do I just not have a team in the Pacific and just go Colorado? I said, nah. I thought about LA. I look at Vegas and I go, if you can guarantee me Mark Stone is healthy, and actually healthy, not just like, hey, bro, it's the playoffs, you want to just try? Right. If he is legitimately healthy, I don't know how this team isn't they would become my favorite if he's healthy. We haven't seen a legit playoff run from Mark Stone in a while, and I think that if he's healthy, okay, I say, yeah, I think they could upend the Oilers, but there's no evidence that he's coming back. There really isn't. Like, I just haven't really seen much as far as like, hey, he's for sure going to be back for the first round of the playoffs, and he's going to be 100%. I don't want this 80% or like a hobbling around on one leg. I don't think he's effective that way. So that's why I'm with you. I say the Edmonton Oilers, because I don't trust that Vegas is going to be able to bring in all their heavy hitters come playoff time. Plus, I mean, it's cute that Jonathan Quick's kind of having a decent start here with them, but I'm going to take the other goalies in this division all day over Jonathan Quick. Sorry.
Yeah, I might have to side with you on that one. It's a nice story, but
I would like to see Jonathan Quick playing the LA Kings, though.
That would be great. Yeah. So let's have Edmonton leapfrog all these teams, and we can get that first round matchup.
There you go.
Now,
Perfect.
let me ask you: if you're Edmonton's coaching staff, are you starting Stuart Skinner, or are you going to Mr. Campbell there?
Man, I think these last 10 games, I think I'm just kind of like I'm grabbing the hot hand, probably going into the playoffs. Like you're saying to your team, hey, we have an outside chance at getting this top seed and really having a much easier path to the next round. So let's win. Let's win as much as we can without let's not die, because we are in the playoffs and we can beat anybody. But let's see if we can't play the Seattle Kraken or the Winnipeg Jets in round one, which would be an awesome first round matchup anyways. But Jack Campbell just hasn't been very good, but he's been a little better as of late. I think I'd probably Stuart Skinner would be where I would be leaning, but I'm just taking the hot hand. Whoever's hotter, and honestly, if one of them has a game where they just don't look comfortable out there, you just say, hey, we've switched you guys up all year long. We're going to switch you up here in the playoffs, and it's okay. We're comfortable with for me. We're comfortable with both of you.
Yep.
So I too have Edmonton as my team, my other team in the West that could win the Stanley Cup.
Wow, beautiful.
All right, you got one more team. You know who my team's going to be.
Yeah, you might be surprised. My last team, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because let's see, so far out of the 4 teams we've talked about, or the 4 teams that I've talked about, you've also had 3 of them, right? So you didn't have the Rangers,
right?
But I think this last team you probably have on your list too, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
All right, there you go. I do have the Toronto Maple Leafs on my list.
Yeah, I mean, just like, and I'll let you take the lead on why you think, but just really quick to throw it out there, because I'd much rather hear you talk about this. But for me, the difference this year versus last year were maybe, yes, okay, playing Tampa in the first round, I would probably have favored Tampa I did the last couple of years. But this year, I'm leaning more towards Toronto because I think this is like a do or die type of year for me. And so I think that type of edge, similar to McDavid and Draisaitl playing with such a chip on their shoulder, they're going to be coming in hot. They're going to be coming in heavy. And then not only that, but now this year they have the 5th best goals against in the league. Their defense is just playing phenomenal. So for me, that's going to be the difference maker.
Okay, yeah, I mean that is the biggest change, is that I think they have a more of a commitment to the defensive side, and their depth on defense is quite strong. I mean, they maybe don't have the Headman, right? That's obvious. Very few teams have a guy like that.
Don't shortchange Morgan Riley, though. I will say
Morgan Riley has been better. He was hurt, and he's kind of had I'd say more of a down year than anything, at least from a defensive standpoint. Only 36 points. I know he's only played 55 games. He has not been the best, but he's been better the last 10 games. So I'll give him that. TJ Brody is maybe, for my money, the most underrated defenseman in the NHL. And then you had Mark Giordano, who was playing 25 minutes a night when everybody was dead. So, we know that what he can do. And, they bring in Luke Shen. They've got Liljegren. They've got Jake McCabe. They can have 2 guys go down in the playoffs and still have a solid top 6. So they've got a lot of depth. And you know what? All that to boot, on the forward side, Ryan O'Reilly will be back here in the next week or 2, I think. And then we'll be able to get back to that little experiment before the playoffs start and get things going. But yeah, their forward group with him in it, with Ryan O'Reilly in there, I think just gives them such versatility Especially when you consider you've got, so like Ryan O'Reilly, I consider him kind of like he's a Swiss Army knife kind of player, right? Like you can put him anywhere, you can kind of do a lot of things with him. He's going to bring a certain type of game to wherever you put him, but you could be comfortable playing him up and down in the lineup. I would say the same about an Alex Kerfoot, where you can put him anywhere you want. He's gonna find something to do, and I mean to a lesser extent than Ryan O'Reilly, of course. But I think and then Calle Yarncroke too. Yarncroke can play center, he can play the wing, he can score goals, he can play the penalty kill. I mean, I think that Calle Yarncroke is probably out of all the signings that the Leafs did in the offseason, he is the best one.
I can't remember what the number of games was. I think it was maybe 7 or 8 games or whatever, but it was basically best 5-on-5 goals for the Leafs, and nobody had more than 2 except for Calle Yarncroke. He had 5. It was a wild number that, you look at Austin Matthews only had 1. And again, this is 5-on-5 goals, but that's the difference, I think, this year too, not only with the defense, but now you've got depth scoring, right? You've got guys that, on that third line doing well. I mean, Yarncroke is fitting great on that top line with Matthews and Marner. And then, you talked about Ryan O'Reilly, right? He's going to be a Swiss Army knife for this team. When the team wants to load up at the, the top 6, they can. But if they need a little bit of depth, they can throw Ryan O'Reilly on that third line. And he's been there, right? He's got that consummate. And then let's not underestimate, too, I think Luke Shin is going to be huge for this team come playoff time.
Yes. Agreed.
And, to me, I mean, that's going to be as big as almost Matthias Ekholm in Edmonton right now, in my opinion. I think it's going to pay huge dividends, maybe not on the score sheet, but, I think block shots, that grindy penalty kill type of guy you're going to get out of Luke Shin is just going to be a phenomenal addition come playoff time.
All right. Yep. And maybe they, like, even though Matt Murray hasn't been phenomenal, right? He's still been pretty darn close to an average goalie in terms of his save percentage at .905. Ilya Samsonov at a .914. He's been very good. I don't know how well he'll do under pressure. I think that's my one concern, is that Samsonov, yes, been the better goalie, but under pressure, what's going to happen? And I think that's a nice thing. You got Matt Murray, who under pressure, he's pretty much the same guy. And he's been there before. I mean, he's won 2 Stanley Cups. He knows how to win in the playoffs. So that's probably the biggest, like, what's going to happen? Like, who's going to start in the playoffs? I think they want Murray to be the guy to start in the playoffs. But I think that Samsonov has kind of given them no choice but to at least strongly consider him to be their top goalie going in the playoffs. So I that's probably, at least in these last 10 games, that's what you got to figure out, is what are you doing with your goaltending?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And it's nice, too, to have that problem, too, right, when you talk about it. Because for me, I think right now Samsonov is going to be my guy come playoff time. But again, right, that having that debacle, that debate where, like, shoot, well, Murray's got the playoff experience, he's got the cup. Frick, what do we do? So, again, not a bad problem to have if you're a Maple Leafs fan. Sure.
I've got one more team.
Yes, I want to hear it.
My outside team. I thought about doing Tampa Bay and just doing like Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay, one of those teams. I'm actually going Carolina. I think they are going to be the top seed in the Metro. So they're going to play either the Islanders or Pittsburgh. And I think they've got it. Even with Svechnikov out, I don't think it matters, because they play such a tight defensive system. And they will drive you nuts how often they shoot the puck in, but my goodness, they can go in and get that puck. And that is going to, in the playoffs, when you're a team that is going to, like, no other team really dumps the puck in like the Hurricanes. So in the playoffs, I think you're looking at maybe, the higher chance of your defenseman getting hurt because of how often they dump the puck in, and guys aren't letting up in the playoffs. They'll let up a little in the regular season, but in the playoffs, I think they're going for probably going for broke a little more there. So I worry about that if I'm a team against Carolina. And their goaltending's been good. They have been great at home and on the road. And even without Svechnikov, they've got guys who are. I mean, Martin Nietzsche has been great. 64 points, 27 goals. Aho, you can never count him out. Not a superstar, but he is a star on this team. And Svechnikov is having a good year, but nothing that, in my opinion, you can't maybe find somebody to replace his production by moving someone up in the lineup like a Teravainen. Kotkaniemi has actually been okay this year, which is probably a huge breath of relief for the Hurricanes, seeing as what they brought to bring him in. But I'm looking at like Jordan Staal in the playoffs. Do I want to play against that guy? No. And then all honestly, the newest shiny toy there in Brent Burns, I think he's kind of changed that team. He's given them a different swagger that they didn't have before. And then you also, you bring in Shane Gostisbehere, who, he's put up 5 points in 10 games with them, but he's kind of got that swagger to him as well. So I'm scared to play this team because I think that they could be that team where they win round 1 in 5 games, and then they they get to go up against Jersey or New York, and the fact that they play such tight defense, I think could result in a lot of 1-0, 2-1 playoff games against either New York or New Jersey, and it's going to be tough to win those games when you're either one of those teams. So I think Carolina has a great chance to win the Stanley Cup. They're probably my more of my sleeper, even though they're a 1 seed in the division. I think just with the injuries that they've had, a lot of people are counting them out, but not me.
Yeah, I would agree with you when you say a lot of people count them out because, listen, Svechnikov, he's a power forward, right? And so that's the type of guy you want who's going to go hard every single shift. But again, you can never count out a Rod Brind'Amour team. And, if somehow, Jesse Puljujärvi can find a little bit, he hasn't scored yet, hasn't put up a point, but if they can finally get him to produce, get him to produce, and maybe you get Seth Jarvis and Teravainen to step up a little bit in the playoffs, they could be dangerous, right? They could be tough to beat. Because you can never count out. You can never count out this team as long as Rod Brind'Amour is there and they've got the defense they do. That's as one of the best defenses in the league. So with that goaltending too and that system, it's going to be no easy out for anybody.
Yeah, and you got 3 goalies to go to. You pick your right. Poison. It is crazy the guys that are going to be on IR in the playoffs. When you consider Pacioretty and Svechnikov and Jake Gardiner and Andre Kasha, but yet this team is still in first place, and that is because of the system that they play. So it'll be. I think there's guys on this team that can step up. Paul Stastny and Derek Stepan's a guy that I would love to have in the playoffs because he's just that. He's that guy you could see kind of being a Patrick Maroon type, right? Like scoring some big goals when it really counts because you're just not afraid to put your body into harm's way. Yeah,
he did it in New York too. We've seen it, so he can be that big time scorer when you need a goal.
They are not a sexy team at all. No. They are probably the league's least sexy team. But they are in first place because they get scoring from everyone. So that's it's definitely a different way, a different approach. But will it work? Will they win the cup? In comparison to some of these teams where you go, well, but the Rangers have Panarin and Kane and Kreider, where you look at the Hurricanes and you go, yes, no. And they don't have Svechnikov now, but they have Aho. Aho's a really great player. Does he match up against those guys as an individual? No, but does their system? Yes. And that's what fascinates me so much about the Hurricanes is that they've done this by committee. And there's very few teams in the league that have done it by committee. And I would say the only team that has won the Stanley Cup, maybe in the last... Funny enough, the last team to win probably by committee was the Carolina Hurricanes when they won in 2006. They were a very similar type of team. They didn't have that superstar player, and they rode good defense, great goaltending, and the perfect mix of veterans all the way and young players all the way to the finals and won the cup. So maybe they do it again.
Maybe.
Well, hey, that's our show. You can find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Let us know what you think. Let us know who your teams are headed into the playoffs. I mean, those aren't the Leafs are my team, but like, I'm not rooting for the Bruins. I just think, they could win the cup.
How can you not pick them?
Yeah, how could I not pick them? I don't want to pick them because I really don't want them to win the cup. Like, they're definitely the team I don't want to have on that list. But it'll be fun, and we're there's some good races still going on in the playoffs, so there's lots to still watch for here in the last. What are the playoffs start on, like the 10th or something like that? I think 10th of April.
Yeah,
that's my birthday.
That's right, it is.
Playoffs start on my birthday. I love it. All right, well, that's our show. We will talk to you guys very soon. Justin, thanks for hanging out for a lot longer than you planned.